Today we're diving into the gear that's redefining how anglers, campers, and travelers explore the back roads, from rooftop tents that set up in 30 seconds to aluminum cargo boxes built to haul everything from fly rods to skis. Today's guest is the general manager of Intrepid Camp Gear, a company that's breaking away from the cookie cutter white label gear you see everywhere and redesigning every piece from the ground up. This is the Wet Fly Swing podcast, where I show you the best places to travel to for fly fishing, how to find the best gear and resources to prepare for that big trip, and what you can do to give back to the fish species we all love. Sloan Hiatt is going to share the background on Intrepid Camp Gear and all the good stuff they have going there today. You're going to find out how they do it. You're going to find out what separates these rooftop campers apart, and we're going to get a few great stories, including a bear encounter with the bear jumping in the back of his pickup while the tent was set up on top of the car. This is a great story today. Great to have Sloan on here. Let's get into it. You can find Sloan and Intrepid at intrepidcampgear.com. How you doing, Sloan?
Dave, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. It's great to have you on here. I'm really excited to talk today about something you've been working on for a decent amount of time, and some amazing products out there. We've had one podcast we did with one of your, ambassadors, somebody that uses your product, and they were talking about, it's kind of the half. It's basically a car topper tent that basically is not a full size. And it was really interesting because I didn't know all the details. We talked about that, but today I want to get into more just on some of your other product lines, what you do at Intrepid Camp Gear and all that. But before we get there, take us back. How are things going this time of year? It's, we're in the holiday season is right around the corner. Are you still working hard, getting ready for Black Friday?
Yeah. We usually hit a pretty big slowdown right after Labor Day. This business is pretty seasonal. We're trying to develop some products that make it a little bit less seasonal. But particularly during September and October, it's a lot of prep for Black Friday. There's a ton of work that goes into it. It ultimately ends up being probably our biggest month of the year, close to it, because of that. So a lot of prep. And I always like to say that my job is the most difficult, like during this season leading up to Black Friday. And then the second it hits, that's usually whenever I go on vacation, because I don't really have much to do for the next month and a half or so. So it's always pretty great.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. And maybe let's just start a little bit on Intrepid. Maybe talk about, we mentioned that a little bit, but what is it you guys do there, and how do you do things a little bit differently maybe than others in your space?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess I can get started the background of three of the founders that we have. I'm the general manager of Intrepid, but each of the founders of the company have a bit of a different background that play a pretty crucial role in the product that we have. One of them that's located in Boulder with us, he kind of has a background specializing in marketing, which kind of plays a lot into trying to have a little more of a unique brand, something that fits a bit differently than other rooftop tent companies into the industry. And then we've got two founders that are located in Vietnam. They're from Korea, and they're at our manufacturing facility. So one of them, he's been doing manufacturing for probably about 25 years now. And so we have a couple sister companies as well that do a lot of manufacturing in the outdoor industry. So a lot of aluminum hardware, a lot of luggage actually. So like hybrid luggage companies. But if you can think of an outdoor company, we probably make aluminum hardware for them in the factory. And then our other founder being an automotive engineer. So he's been doing automotive engineering for about 30 years now as well. So all these kind of came together and played a pretty critical role in the product itself. And the goal is honestly, as a company, to we can get in a little bit later of what white labeling is and how that kind of affects products in the industry and really what we have access to and pricing ultimately and the quality of our products. But we're really trying to keep anything that we launch in the industry as being pretty innovative and unique. No white labeling. We're designing and manufacturing everything that we're doing, and something that we're trying to hold pretty firm to. So we're not sourcing products that another company is ultimately selling on their shelf. And so it affects everything that we do day to day. All the time. It affects how we do customer service, how we approach future product, and the product that we have now. So it's a lot.
Right. That is amazing. No, and I think that the cool thing about that is you mentioned Korea in the fly fishing space. A lot of great, when you talk about overseas fly rods being manufactured, Korea is probably maybe the top place
Really?
Because because they're manufactured in China and there's lots of countries, but Korea, a lot of the some of the best brands are out of Korea.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like hand-tied flies that come out of Southeast Asia as well, I believe, too. They've got some people that have been doing it for like decades.
That's right.
And just consistently doing it. So
yeah, definitely. So Korea has something good, and I understand it makes sense. You've got a couple of founders in Korea on that side, and then you also have somebody here in the States. Well, so the rooftop tents, I mean, let's start there with that one. Do you guys have a few different options? Talk about the main thing and who would be a potential customer for this? Because these things are, pretty amazing, right? They're on top of the car. They pack down into almost nothing. Describe that a little bit.
yeah, so I would say generally in rooftop tents, it can be a bit difficult to be innovative in the space. Initially, when we had started, the founders, one of their biggest gripes with the current tents out there was really the lack of space in them. It's pretty tight, especially if you're taller. I'm not that tall, about 6'1", but even for myself in a typical wedge style tent, which is kind of shaped like a door stopper, it's pretty popular. You may have seen them. A lot of companies make them. Your feet are pretty tight up in the corner. So a lot of times you have to lay at a bit of an angle or kind of diagonal in the tent. It's hard to cram two people in there. So we are really trying to design something that can increase the space inside the tent. It's easier said than done at the end of the day, but we ultimately did a wedge with a kind of a break in the top lid. So it's got a hinge style in it. It's the only tent that has it. It is our patented design, which has been a process of its own to get that properly patented. And it's pretty expensive to do, in all honesty. But the benefit of it is the amount of extra space that you get inside the tent is upward of about 40%. I think it's about 36, 37% specifically. And inside of it, you can really feel it. I'd say the difference maker is when somebody can get inside of it and experience it. If they have been inside of a tent, I can be sitting up on my knees fully in there in about the middle of the tent. We've had trade shows or camping or wherever. We can usually get like 3 or 4 guys in there and play a game of cards and be sitting in there pretty comfortably, which is pretty rare. So that's the main selling point in design behind the tent is to increase space. We believe if you're going to spend multiple $1,000s on a product, you might as well be able to do more than just sleep in it,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If it's, nasty out or something like that and you need to be hanging out, that might be nice to be able to sit in there. And does it also add with the 40%, does it add sleeping? Is that length the same or does that change?
So our tents are a little bit longer than most tents out there. Generally, I've seen them in about like the 78 to 80 inch mark, and ours are about 88 inches. I'd say that's a little bit longer than most people need. The perk to it is if you have a dog or if you've got like bags or anything, there's plenty of room in there for dogs to be down at your feet. Or if you've got bags or anything, you can put those up by your head or down by your feet too. So the extra space is valuable if you use it. If not, I'd say it's like generally people are using about 80 inches in length.
About 80, yeah, which is, what is that, 80? And the feet is, that's over 6 feet, right?
Yep, it's about 7 feet.
About 7 feet, yeah. So there's plenty of length for your average size person.
Mm-hmm.
And so talk about that. What is the rooftop tent, on the roof? Is that better than being on the ground? Talk about how this, for somebody brand new to it that doesn't know anything about a rooftop tent, why would they want to have it on the roof? How's that different than just having a tent that pops out and throw on the ground?
Yeah, and I would say that this particular style of camping is not limited to, but it's going to be for people that are mostly camping with their vehicles, or what I like to describe it as is, and it's also, there's some retailers out there that use the same terminology, but automotive supported adventure, basically. So you're not going to be backpacking or anything of that sort. Maybe it's tied in or related to it, but you're going to be camping with your vehicle, whether you've got a kitchen setup of some sort based out of the vehicle or you're using it to drive from point to point. But this is really a style of camping that kind of came out of places like Australia and South Africa, where this is it was a little more popular. That's really where rooftop tents kind of sprouted out of. And then eventually making its way here. Of course, the US and Canada is pretty well supported for doing the same thing. But yeah, these tents go on top of your car. They are going to be heavier, anywhere from 100 pounds to some of them are 250 pounds. The perks to them being, one, it's a hard shelter. So they're a little better supported in the weather and wind. It keeps you off the ground too. With that, you have a mattress inside of the tent that comes with it. Some people kind of upgrade those and make them more plush too, but you do get a little more of a comfortable way of camping. Lastly, I'd say the biggest benefit is really setup time. So if you are on the move, it really takes about 30 seconds to a minute to pack up your tent, get going, compared to a lot of the ground tents that we've seen in the past, which can take a little bit longer. And there are great ground tents out there that have gotten really good at optimizing setup time, which is awesome. It's just a different way of camping ultimately.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. No, and I've seen, I've done it all, pretty much. And and I'm not as familiar, with your tents. That's one of the great things here. I think I'm going to get some opportunities to check them out more. But I know the general, concept. But for somebody, especially as they get older, sometimes it's nice to have that soft foam thing, sleeping on the ground, it can be good for some of the youngsters, but definitely it's nice to have that pad. And like you said, just being up, I've done a lot of that, just sleeping higher, it's, I guess you stay warmer, right? You're off the ground, maybe not as much wind. And I think safety is also something I heard from people about that they feel like being up there is a little safer, right? If you're camping out somewhere, what are your thoughts there? Are those some of the other benefits that you hear about?
Yeah, I have some pretty good personal experience with this. A couple of years ago, we were on a road trip. We were coming back from a show in Flagstaff and did some camping and mountain biking in Arizona and in Utah. And then when we came back into Colorado, it was our first night back there, and it was completely my mistake, but I had really underestimated and forgotten that we were back into Colorado and that bears are now a factor when you get back in there.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
so
right.
I kept a cooler of food in the bed of the Jeep that was in the Gladiator that I was camping in. And I had a bear jump. It was what we consider a brown bear, but I think that's in dispute what is actually a brown bear. But it crawled into the bed of the Jeep.
Holy cow.
And knocked the cooler out. And for pretty much the entire night, this thing was coming to and from the campsite. But at one point during the night, I had looked out the tent and it was maybe about like a few feet below me in the bed of the Jeep, in the cooler. And so it's slightly startling because I can't see anything till I shine my light, and we're like kind of like looking face to face.
Right.
I honestly thought it was my friend's dog. But
oh my God,
completely my fault. But I was grateful in that moment that I was up off the ground.
Yeah.
I didn't sleep great, but it was a safe position to be in.
Man, that's nuts.
And for people that are in Colorado or wherever, I've had many experiences camping where you get bears just going through the campsite, just rummaging through things. It's very normal. It's even normal. Growing up, we had bears in our trash cans just about every night. So it is kind of a normal part of being out in some states, I would say. So you definitely do get a little bit of security that way. So I could say that I have felt safe, but it might not be somebody's first concern or solution, I would say.
No, right. Yeah, it's just added benefit. That's crazy. Yeah, the bear, he was kind of rummaging around and then ripped out the cooler, and you realized it eventually that it was a bear and not a dog during the night.
Yeah, once I shined the light on him and I saw.
Oh, so you shined the light on the bear.
I did because I was in a deep sleep. So when I woke up and I shined the light, I thought it was the dog, and I also couldn't really tell how close it was or if it was just kind of like brushing up against the car. But it was directly below me in the bed of the truck.
What did it look like? What did it do when you shined the light? Could you see it?
Yeah, you really underestimate how dark their eyes are.
Really?
Until they're super dark, and it was just looking at me, and he was pretty calm. I think he was calm. And he kept coming back and digging through more of the cooler. Dang. But he ate all of our food, drank about a gallon of orange juice, and he even dug through the bottle of mayo that I had for sandwiches too. That was really what he was coming back for, was the mayo. The mayo. It was pretty hard for him to get to.
Damn, that is crazy. Yeah, I haven't had any bear encounters like that, but that's quite a story, because in your tent, so you're there, you've got a protected kind of a hard layer, right, between the bear and you on the bottom of your tent.
Yeah, it was comfortably about as close as like I'll get to a bear.
Yeah, ever.
So yeah. I felt fine, but at the same time, it was completely my fault that I was even in that position. So,
Right.
but I was glad to be up in the tent rather than, we had a guy at the site next to us. He was a college kid. He was just in a ground tent, and the bear was going over to his site afterward. And I felt bad for him if he wasn't sleeping or if he was aware of it, because that would be a pretty tough spot to be in.
Wow. Crazy. So that's a great bear story. Well, so we talked about here the tents. Talk about some of the other products, because you guys have some other stuff going there that's, I think, probably pretty unique as well. Describe that a little bit.
Yeah, so the tents are our flagship product. We've got a few different sizes of them, and more to come. We're working on other styles of tents too. Again, it's a little easier said than done, but one of the easiest products for us to transition to was we wanted to do an aluminum cargo box. And the thought behind it was that the tent itself, the extrusion or the frame, is kind of split between two shells. So you have the lower shell and the upper shell. But if we just took out the hinge to it and we basically made the tent in a smaller box, we could make an aluminum cargo box. It ended up being a bigger project than that, of course, as it goes. But we saw, mainly from one of the guys on our team, is as of recently has stopped, but was a professional cross-country skier. And so we've got a couple other guys at the shop that have a lot of time spent skiing or working in ski shops as well. So they're pretty well accustomed to it. But a lot of the ski boxes that are out there are actually, they're all composite and they're plastic. And it's great because it's lighter weight. They're easier to install, and they're going to be probably a little more price friendly. But the downside of it is the lifetime of the box is definitely much lower because it's a composite. So we wanted to make an aluminum box. We felt like there was a good market for it. So we did that. We just made the tent in itself in a really small container, basically. And we wanted to launch with a couple sizes. There's a couple different changes we had to make to it. But we've got a 120 liter case and a 190 liter case. The 120 is really great for, let's say, like hunters. We've even had actually a lot of fly fishers get the 120 because it's small enough that they can break their rods down and put them in the box with their other gear too. We've been pretty surprised at how many of them have been kind of geared toward that industry. And then the 190 is great for skis, snowboards, what we thought was going to be fly rods, but actually that's been more popular in the 120. But yeah, it's been a product that we just launched it about a year ago. It was really when we got our pilot order out there. And so we, up until recently, hadn't really done any marketing for them. And they've definitely grown in popularity. We've had a lot of interest in them, which is really great. But yeah, it's a unique box. There's a lot of modularity to them. The inside is going to be modular as well. You've got T-tracks in the top and bottom. So if you need to mount or attach things on the inside, it's quite easy to do stuff, strapping things down. There's T-tracks on the outside as well. They're going to be a little bit heavier than your typical composite box, but your room for modularity and working with them or doing unique stuff with your equipment is definitely going to be a lot better than a typical composite box.
Yeah. So you're saying you could strap stuff to the outside of them as well as the inside if you need to put extra?
Yes. So we've got the ability to do crossbars on the top of the box. So say you've got kids that you want to attach their skis or snowboards or something.
That's cool.
You can put crossbars on top of the box and then do ski mounts that way. Or say you wanted to keep your fly gear inside of the box and then do like a fly rod holder on top of that. It's really easy to attach it on the crossbars on top too. And so it just makes it easier to have the rest of your roof space to be using for whatever you want. Maybe you've got kayaks or like small boats or whatever, or even a solo, which is kind of why we designed it in the first place. Was we're like, all right, if we're going to make a solo man tent and we're making these claims that you can keep the rest of your roof space for your gear, we should probably have a solution for the rest of your gear. So that was kind of the initial thought, was like, all right, we should probably make a solution at the same time for this. So they do go hand in hand. And I believe Mackenzie, that was on your podcast.
Yeah.
She's a great ambassador of ours. That's a sub she's rolling with, is a solo and an ITX 190, which is the full length box. And it's a really, really great combo, and it works really well for her.
Yep, definitely. No, that's cool. And there are, yeah, definitely, it makes sense with the fly rod. So, and then what is the 120 liter? How long would that be in like lengthwise? Or does it come in different lengths?
Yeah, good question. So right now we've just got the two sizes. Those are going to be just two specific products. So the 120 is going to be 55 inches, in length and about 20, 21 inches in width. Interior space on those is going to be closer to like 8.5 inches. And then for the 190, it's going to be the same width and the same height, but it's going to be 88 inches in length instead. So
Yeah.
for the 120, we designed it to be the same width as our Geo 2.5 rooftop tent. That's our most popular selling tent. And so for a lot of trucks out there, a lot of them will do a tent over the bed, and then they'll typically do cargo boxes on the cab of the truck. So we wanted something that fit in the same width as the tent, so it would look really great. And then the 190 is the same length as the Solo, because we wanted them, if they were going to go side by side, to look pretty cohesive and work together. So those sizes are there for a reason. We definitely are kind of working on some other stuff. We've had some requests for sizes, but I'd say those two sizes cover most of our customer base and what they're looking for.
That makes sense. Yeah. And the smaller one, the 120 inches wise, yeah, that would be perfect. Even a longer spay rod or something really long in the, if you divide, those all break down now into, most of them are 4-piece rods. That's the cool thing about the fly rods. So they break down easily, would fit in the 120, even the longest rods, which is great.
And we, the guys at Umpqua were really generous and kind of helping us out and giving us some gear to kind of, lending us some gear to kind of try out in there and test out links and stuff. They've been really great partners for us during this time too, just kind of helping us out marketing wise and getting in the industry. It's a tough industry to crack into, I would say.
Yep.
So we've been really grateful to kind of just be working with them, and our sister company's doing some product stuff for them too. So they've been really great to us.
Yeah, I think there's definitely plenty of overlap, fly fishermen that are into, you mentioned it, hunting, skiing. We've talked on our other podcast series, In the Bucket. I know Brian's he's a big skier. And he's talked to a lot of skiers, and we've had Riley LeBeau, who's been on the podcast. He was a professional skier, and
nice.
So there's a lot of overlap, people, because we're all into all sorts of stuff, whether that's running, cross country, right? And it's a matter of the gear. It sounds like the rooftop tents is really interesting because I think some people that aren't aware of why they would need them, right? I think that's a kind of an interesting thing to explain. And for me, I get it because it's like, one of the things too, you're on a road trip, being able to pop up the tent, in a matter of seconds and just hop in and be sleeping without having to take out and throw all your stuff on the ground can be nice. Do you find I know Mackenzie talked about that. Is that something people are utilizing quite a bit?
Yeah, it's growing. One of our biggest directions that we've tried to kind of push branding wise is being a little bit more expansive of the industry and who the target market is. Our direct industry is called overlanding. And when we go to shows and whenever I see the companies that are either our competitors or we work with them because they make products that support ours as well, like racks, they're generally pretty exclusive to people that are just modifying their vehicles. And to me, that really cuts off a lot of people out there that are maybe more so a direct market, maybe a bit harder to target because it's a lot of different activities. But these are the people that are going to be using your product more than the people that are modifying their vehicles. I tend to look at that. I think people would be upset if I said this, but the guys out there that are typically modifying their overlanding rigs are pretty similar to Subaru guys or guys that are modifying their trucks. Ultimately, they might not be really using their vehicle to the fullest, but they are spending a lot of money on it. And so we really want to try to reach out to the people that are going to be using our product a lot as well. And we really feel that activities are the way to do that. And so whether that's winter sports, fly fishing, or even mountain biking, or whatever, there's been a lot of interest because those people eventually, outside of the gear that they're spending their money on, are looking for ways to be a little bit more comfortable when they're doing it, especially if they're really prioritizing it and they're going up most weekends of the season. So we're trying to hit those people a little bit more, and they value the gear that they're using a lot. And we feel like, particularly for winter sports and fly fishing, it is a natural progression that eventually they're kind of looking at a camper setup, or how they can be a little more comfortable and better suited to go more in the year than they are. So this is a product that we feel is eventually down the pipeline for these people, and we're just trying to kind of cater to them a little bit more than a lot of our competitors are, or other people in the industry, because we do feel like they're a really valuable customer, and we get the most feedback from them, honestly, of the product and how it performs, because they're going on the fringes of the season, which we really appreciate. So we get a lot of good feedback from them.
Yeah, that's right. That is a good point. I think you're right on there in doing that, because it just makes sense if you just take fly fishing, right? I mean, you could have your tents ready to go, you got your box ready to go. I mean, you could have all your gear, so when you get off work or whatever it is, or or just you don't have to pack up everything. You don't have to spend a day packing. It can kind of be ready to go and you're out there, and that goes for any of these things, right? Any of these outdoor sports, it's nice to be ready to go. And that sounds like that's kind of what you guys are thinking about.
Yeah. And this is how I am personally. I can imagine a lot of your listeners are too, but we've got customers that they really like to optimize their setups and how they're packing, so that when it comes, like, they have really diligent about making gear bags or like gear boxes, or like they're really well organized. And for me, like I do the same thing with my Landcruisers, like keep stuff really organized in there. So it's like I'm ready at all times. Like if I want to go somewhere, I'm not like overpacking, but I don't have to really spend a lot of time organizing my stuff, that I can really just get up and go. And with a tent, that is really part of the beauty of it, is that it's on your vehicle. If you've got your bedding inside of it, then like your sleeping situation is taken care of. So maybe you just need to, like, especially if you've got a cargo box, maybe you keep that stuff in your box, but you're really just like packing food and some clothes, and then you can bounce if you want. And setup time is much more optimized too when you're doing that.
Yeah, definitely. And these tents, the Rooftop, I mean, pretty much any vehicle, right? This is not just, for cars. You guys see them on everything out there?
Yeah. And I'd say some shapes of tents are going to be a little bit better suited for some vehicles. For us, our tents are going to be a little bit longer. So they're going to be great for SUVs and trucks. So we get a lot of 4Runners, a lot of Jeeps, Tacomas, Tundras. We do have people with Subarus. Subaru's doing a pretty good job nowadays of making their wilderness, for example, from the factory is actually a really great setup for adding weight to the roof. So there are a lot of vehicles out there that OEM from the factory, the roof racks don't really have great capacity. So you're automatically going to be spending more money if you want to put something on the roof of it. So smaller vehicles are starting to move in that direction, because they're seeing that people are trying to find a more family-friendly way of camping. So we've done quite a few Subarus and RAV4s in recent months, and they're great vehicles to be working with. So what we want to do is develop some products that fit a little bit better to their vehicle size too. But our tents do work quite well on them.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So, I mean, really, that's one of the great things, is that anybody can pretty much get one of these, right? If they wanted to, as opposed to, say, going to buy a pull behind camper. There's some cars that you're not going to be pulling, probably most, you're not going to be pulling a camper. Right. There's stuff like this, right? And there's all sorts of things, but this kind of fits everything. And then you're saying it, that even the bigger companies, the car companies, are actually, they see this and they're modifying their vehicles, so they're ready to go for rooftop tents and stuff like this.
Yeah, it's growing in popularity a lot. And I think those companies are starting to see that their customer base is willing to spend the money on products that go with their vehicle, and people are buying vehicles with the intention of what they're going to do with them maybe 3 or 4 years down the line. And which is it's really great. It makes our jobs easier, because up until this point, it is a really big research step for customers when they buy a vehicle, to then be like, okay, what racks do I need? Like, what rack do I need? How do I install it? How much is it going to cost? What can I hold with that rack? And then like really thinking 5 steps down the line for their ideal setup for their lifestyle. It's a pretty long thought out process, and it can really rack up a lot. So the more vehicles that are doing that from the factory, the easier it is for their customers to get their ideal setup really quickly and spend much less. And some are much better at it than others. But we appreciate it. It makes our jobs a lot easier, because our tents, to a degree, and even cargo boxes, are a bit dependent on racks and other products that support them. So we really have to kind of work with customers to get their setup styled.
That's right. Yeah, you got to have a rack. That's the big thing. That's something you guys don't make, actually. The Yakima, all the racks is Correct. What you're going on to.
Yeah. And it's doing that and not dabbling in that portion of the industry has been really great for us making partnerships with companies and working with them. You kind of have to figure out whether if you want to go into a product line, if it's worth kind of messing with some of like the dynamics because it is a really small industry. And racks are one of those sections of the industry that we've got a lot of good friends and a lot of good companies that we work with. And so developing those close partnerships because our product is so dependent on them is really important and valuable.
Yeah, definitely. On the, you mentioned it, how quick it is to put the tent up, literally seconds. Can you take these things off of the, the top, the box or the tent, or are people just putting them up there and they're up there and they stay up there?
Yeah, so they're designed to be on there year round if you choose. That is the beauty of having a hard shell aluminum tent. So these sides are going to be extruded aluminum, and then the top and the base are going to be honeycomb aluminum. So the benefit of that is that through the elements, you can leave them on there and they operate really well. It's going to be a little more durable even during the weather compared to a soft shell tent, which is going to be like a soft cover or just like fabric, basically. So a lot of people do leave them on year round. We do have people that take them off during the winter months, or for somebody like myself, I've got an older car. So having weight on there year round is a lot harder to drive with. So it's going to be a little more seasonal that I have it on. And I'd say that there are ways to make it easy to take on and off. There's definitely some great products out there. We work with a company called Van Ultra that makes some like quick release mounts, basically. So you can take the tent on and off pretty quickly. The mounts of getting it attached to the rack are really what's going to take time. So there's some good products out there that I think are worth their value and worth investing in that are great for taking tents on and off, and even cargo boxes as well. So
yeah, that's sweet. So if you're out there in one of these and you're, say, you're in Colorado, so you guys don't get as much, of the rain, but I'm in a place where it rains a lot, and talk about that. If you're in a place where it's raining, first off, obviously it's a tent, it's waterproof, it's bomber, you got the aluminum sides and everything. Mm-hmm. But what happens when you put the tent away? What's American, if it's really rain, one of those really rainy days, what's the recommendation when you get home with that thing? It's sealed up down in your, in your box.
Yeah. So this has been a pretty big learning lesson for us because it's one, there's a lot more moving parts on the tent. And from when we first started, the first product that we had made, we had to make so many adjustments on it to really get it to work in all climates, especially in places like the PNW, or we really experienced this a lot in Japan or even some areas in Germany. So we had to do a lot of design changes in the first year to really make these suitable for all climates. I'd say that for areas that it's really going to be humid is one, just making sure, like we always recommend, like making sure your tent is dry before you pack it up. So if it's raining when you're packing up, maybe that's not the best time to do it. Maybe you have to wait till you get home. But trying to dry off your fabric before you pack it up is best for preventing any sort of like mold or like mildew from building up inside, especially if you go longer times without using it. For people that have their car parked, we have a cover on some of our newer tents that people can put on there if they're trying to prevent like any sort of like UV damage way down the line. That you can put the cover on there, or if rain is a big concern, you can put it on there as well. We've tried to make it that it's not dependent on somebody having to worry where they're putting their vehicle or their tent and storing it at. Granted, like the more precautions you take, the longer the product is going to last in general for just about anything. But we try to make it so that's like, hey, during the expected lifetime of this product, if you leave it outside, it's not going to be an issue. But there's definitely things like putting the cover on or making sure that you're taking care of the inside of your tent when you're packing it up that are really helpful for getting life out of it.
Right. Yeah. There's all sorts of things you can do with it. You can, and the same thing again about other products. Waders are a good example, right? Waders, you can, if you want to, you can not even dry them out, throw them in after you're done off the river and in your truck. Or like I did with my rods the other day, I forgot that I had, this is total, not a terrible thing, but my rods were in the boat. They got wet in the cases, and I forgot to pull them out of the cases. And then, it wasn't even that long, but I pulled them out. I'm like, oh man, they already had some mold was starting to
really,
get on the cork.
Yeah.
and they're fine now. But that's something where I just, again, made a mistake. But waders, the same thing. If you're going to throw your stuff away, it'll be fine probably for a while, but you're just not going to get as much use. And I think what you're saying is, you take care of it if you can, dry it off as much as possible. And then what I would do is, if it was me when I got home, if it was one of those trips, I'd make sure to pop it up, dry it out in the driveway, right, sort of thing. Make sure it's complete if you had to.
Is that a pretty common battle that people have, especially with waders? Because just forgetting to dry them off or store them in the right spot where they can get smelly pretty quick and cause some other issues. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, waders, I'm really hard. I think a lot of people are really hard on the waders. And, one of our other partners this year is Patagonia, and they have a great wader, the Swift Current waders, which I've been wearing a ton. And actually, we just talked to some of their folks there as well, and they were saying that, they design them to be durable and to last, but you're just going to get more life if you keep them dry, And he even mentioned washing. He said, you put them in the mild solution of, just like Gore-Tex, right?
Yeah.
Same thing. If you got to take care of that stuff and then it'll last. Yeah. So it's probably the biggest thing, that and boots and fly fishing that kind of wear out.
Would you say that it's worth, right now, kind of two different systems that we have on the tents and the boxes, but on the boxes, we have drain ports in them, so they're pretty easy to spray or wash out whenever you've got dirt and stuff in them. And then for the tents, we have these ports on the bottom. Some people use them for wiring and such, but some people also use them if they've got rain or if they've got condensation. You just pop those ports, and then as you're driving, you can get some airflow to the mattress and underneath. Is that something that you'd say is a valuable solution for even boxes for really airing out a lot of the gear that's building up moisture in those boxes?
Yeah. So to keep it, if you did, because if you don't have something like that, then it's just all sealed up in there, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And that would be a problem. I think the Pacific Northwest, you've got all the places where you got cold and other stuff, but the Pacific Northwest, because it rains so much and you could go 30 days, or you can get one of those things where it's just, wind sideways, off the coast and raining, and, it's just, everything's getting shaken up, and, it's pretty hard not to get water sometimes in a place, but you got to have it. It's got to be able to air out, whether that's a, and I think campers, what they do well is they have the pot, the little thing up top that you can roll up the vent, event, right? Yeah. So I think a vent, that would be something, but I'm looking at your tent as I'm sitting here. I'm looking at a picture. You probably know this one. There's a gal in there with her dog. The thing's pretty cool. It's the whole side is open up completely. The back is open. You've got looks like a window up top, which is open. That's the other side of this, is that this thing's cool because when you're out in the summer, you can just open this thing up and have almost like you're sleeping outside, but you have a cover.
Yeah. And this is maybe one of the more undervalued aspects from my position, that I don't think too much about it until customers tell me how much they appreciate it. But because of the height of it, how much space there is in it, the doors are really big. And this is actually something that two of our founders really valuing in it. Was they saw this more from a family perspective in Asian cultures, that they really want to hang out and have family time in a camping setting. It's a little bit different from our camping. And so having really big windows like that, they felt was really, really valuable. So for people here, it might not be necessarily a buying point or something that's going to convince them, but when they are using it, they talk about it a lot. They're like, oh man, I really appreciate how big the doors are in this.
Exactly.
There's no blocks or anything that really prevent me from seeing what's going on, which is
seeing
really
out.
The point of whether they're,
Yeah. And that's what we love. I've got a couple little kids, and we love sometimes we'll sleep right on the ground, like I said, with the tarp, because you can kind of see the stars, and it's kind of nice. And same thing with this. You're sitting there, you can kind of look out the side or up and be like, oh, okay, I'm outside, I'm camping. You're kind of, that's the cool thing about it, right? You're camping outside, you're seeing the stars, but you're not looking at it's open. So I get that. So there's two things, right? There's that versus what we're talking about with lots of rain and all of that. But, to answer your question, I think that, having some sort of a place, if it does get crazy, water gets in there, it can slip out, is good. And then how do you dry it out? But again, Pacific Northwest is so extreme that you just go with what you have, if you can. And it's one of those trips where it's, you could wait a little bit longer to dry it out, or when you get home, if you have a garage or actually, I guess the garage would be one thing. Maybe it wouldn't be tall enough, but, for me, I would just pop it up when I got home and made sure it was dry.
Yeah. And I tell a lot of people to bring the issues that we deal with, I'm in Colorado, so it's significantly more dry. So we just live in like vastly different climates. So it's
Right.
funny listening to you talk about this. It's just stuff I don't
Well,
experience.
you guys have the cold, right? You have the cold there.
Yeah, yeah. And we do get seasons of rain, but it's people really forget how dry it is here, actually, just day to day. But we deal with condensation a lot because you're inside of the tent, like it gets really cold at night. And then in the morning, the Colorado sun will really change a temperature by like 10, 15 degrees just from being in the shade or not. So a lot of people, it's like 40 degrees at night. They wake up in the morning, the sun's beating on even a ground tent or a canopy or whatever it is that you're in, and the condensation will just build up really quick. So you can't eliminate it, you can only mitigate it. So we give people some pointers, but it only goes as far as they decide to use them. But I always recommend people just bring a towel with them, and you just keep that inside the tent. So when you pack it up, you just wipe out some of the condensation before you're packing it up. So that way it's like, if you don't open it up for 6 months, like there's no surprises whenever you go to open it back up. And people are usually pretty good about that, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, it's just a little bit of due diligence. I mean, that's I think the take home message here, right? You just got to be aware of what you're packing away and all that. But the cool thing is, yeah, like I said, it packs out 30 seconds or, not very long. You could just sit there and, use it. So, just as we're looking at this, again, we talked about, a couple of products here. What else, for somebody listening who isn't familiar with these, anything else we're missing here you want to highlight?
Yeah, I think it's valuable to talk about the nature of the industry and products in general. So I'll talk a little bit, like we try to educate people on what white labeling is and why. We get a lot of questions about the pricing of a lot of products that we see or why a lot of them look similar. So I think it's pretty valuable. It's maybe one of the best pieces of knowledge people can take away, I guess. But the process of the industry, which is just sourcing products from factories and then putting your brand or company on it, is white labeling. So most of the products that we see, and this also really is like evident in apparel and other companies or other industries as well, that you see 3 different companies with the same exact product with a different logo, and you're wondering, why do these look the same? Why do they seem like they're the same? Is there a cheaper version of it out there that I can buy? Or like, why are some of them so expensive compared to others? And the reality is, like, for a lot of those companies, you're paying for the brand of them, and you actually are buying the same product that comes out of the same factory as them. And this is just the nature of being in a global economy and the access to sourcing products from factories around the world and the ease of it up until really the last year has really inflated the market with products. And so it's so hard to make buying decisions for consumers. So particularly in tents, you'll see a lot of tents that look exactly the same and quite frankly are exactly the same. They just have different logos and maybe some different colors on them and such. And this isn't everybody. There are like a small handful of companies that are doing a good job of being innovative. And I have a lot of respect for those companies because they've really paved the way for people like Intrepid to do the same as well, because they've had a lot of success doing it. So my advice to consumers is just doing your research on your product. And if the company isn't overtly like telling you what solution their product is solving, and they're not very transparent about it, it probably isn't worth spending the money on it. So be driven toward companies that are giving you a solution to issues that they're having or that consumers are typically having. And just the eye test is a good way to do it. If you feel like you're looking at a t-shirt and it's the same as another t-shirt with a different logo on it, they might be the same t-shirt. So it is really helpful when making buying decisions. And granted, branding plays a big role in that too, that people might be more drawn toward a particular brand, but the price at the end of the day is not usually a reflection of the product that you're buying, unfortunately.
Right.
And sourcing is really changing that today because it's getting harder and harder to source. But thus far, the barriers to entry into a lot of industries have been really low. So people can source products from anywhere very easily and start a company. And so, yeah, it gets really hard to make buying decisions and to decipher what it is that you're buying. Yeah.
Right, to know what's the cheap, the crap versus the good stuff, right? And that's a big thing what we're talking about here. And I think what goes along with that is service, right? I mean, I think service is, and we talked about this with Patagonia and some of the other great companies out there, is that, service is so huge, because stuff could happen to any product, right? It doesn't matter, who you are. And so, but the key is if you have good service, you can take care of the customers and they feel like they got your back. And
Totally.
And I'm sure there's some struggles with some companies on that. But talk about that. What is the service, your service side of it? How do you think of service, and would somebody, if there was an issue, how would you guys take care of that?
Yeah. So in the issues that we have had, which is just kind of a guarantee when you're really starting something in a product from the ground up, the benefit of it is because we're making it and designing it ourselves, it's really easy for us to know the ins and outs of the product and find solutions really quickly. So a lot of times if we do discover an issue, it's to the point, or if the customer discovers it, it's to the point where it's actually already been resolved, and it's really easy. I wouldn't say it's easy, but it's really doable for us to maintain our warranty that we have. So we have a 3-year warranty on the tents. And if it's something that we can fix easily, then that might just be replacing a part or sending something for the customer to be able to do it, or it means us replacing the tent itself. So because we're making these and they're evolving pretty quickly, for a typical factory that's selling to 10 companies, their quantities are massive. So if there's an issue that they're experiencing, it's really hard to just create a lapse in a new product and change production really quickly to a new design, because there's already thousands of them already out there. But for us, we have our manufacturing cycles. So when we're changing designs or making a new tent for next year with some minor changes, we can really update things. So a lot of times if a customer experiences something, it is pretty easy for us to replace it or replace the part ultimately. And we try to hold really firm to that. In some ways, it's easier said than done. In some areas, it ends up being really expensive for us to replace product, but it's just the nature of the game. And ultimately, customers just want a solution and just to know that they're going to be taken care of at the end of the day. We find that's customers are less upset with the inconvenience of something and more excited that they're being taken care of, and that somebody's holding to their word ultimately. So that's really what we can do at the end of the day, is just hold to our word that we believe in our product, we believe in what we're doing. And when rubber hits the road, it's we'll make sure that the customer is satisfied and that they're getting what they paid for ultimately, even if it ends up being expensive on our end.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And the fact that you guys are, this is not white labeled. So you guys are the design, you mentioned earlier, your founders who have the design background and all that stuff. It's you can take care of people. Exactly. If you hear something comes up, you guys can probably quickly know and fix it. And like you said, that's the same thing when we talked to Patagonia. They're big on fixing things if they need to, instead of throwing it away, let's fix this and repair it and keep it going strong. So that's good. Okay.
Yeah, they do a great job at that.
Awesome. Well, I think what we'll do is give a quick shout out to our Wet Fly Swing Pro community. And then we'll take it out here with a couple of maybe random questions for you here. But so today I just want to give a shout out to Mark Rowe. He's in our community. He's been traveling around. I ran into him up in Alaska on a trip, a destination, which I'm sure some people have been taking your tents and gear up there. But, that's a big place where it's like a destination, the bucket list destination. Where do you want to go? If you haven't been to Alaska, that's a place. Talk about bears, right? Has that been, now let's just start with that for you. So first, shout out to Wet Fly Swing Pro and Mark out there in our group. What do you have on your ticket? Are you happy being in Colorado, knowing you're in this amazing place? Are you trying to get out to Alaska and some of these other places around the country? Anything on your bucket list?
Yeah, I am very happy being in Colorado. There's been a few opportunities of the potential of moving elsewhere, and me and my wife, who she's not generally fond of the cold, it's even hard for her to be able to leave. And it's just, you get all 4 seasons here, and they're true seasons, which is pretty awesome. But I also do get the luck of being able to travel a lot for work. And so when we're doing shows across the country, we're driving a ton. And then I'm also doing some international shows too, and expos. So this month, sorry, I'll be in Vietnam in a couple of weeks, and then I'll be in Indonesia the following week for a little vacation during Thanksgiving as well. But I've been fortunate enough to drive a lot of places in the country, but there's still so much that we have yet to even touch. So Alaska's definitely up there. One of these days, it's been kind of a dream of mine to do. I'm a big Land Cruiser guy. I do a lot of Land Cruiser builds. That's just kind of a personal hobby of mine. But doing a build and then driving up to Alaska,
that'd be amazing.
Would be a really awesome one to do.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
The Land Cruiser is interesting. We actually had an episode we did a while back with a guy who actually built a boat. He had a boat. He talked about that, but he was a big Land Cruiser guy too. And I was a little misguided because I always thought Land Cruiser, I'd heard some things about Land Cruisers maybe being, problems and stuff like that. But he was like, no, man, Land Cruisers are great. Talk about that with your Land Cruiser. What do you do? What's your current vehicle and what's your specialty, or what do you do out there?
Yeah. So I drive an 1986 FJ60, and I've done a motor swap on it and a lot of hours grinding and fixing it and restoring it. And so I daily drive it now. It's a lot of fun, and it breaks and then you fix it and it breaks. But I know I've probably touched every nut and bolt on the car at this point.
Wow.
So I can fix it pretty quickly and get it back up and driving. But yeah, it's a big passion of mine, and they are quite reliable. They are old though, so it's like the reality is that there's a good amount of wear and tear and stuff busts on it, and you gotta be pretty savvy with it. There's a really great support network for Land Cruisers. The community is massive, so anytime I've broken down in the middle of nowhere and not known what I was going to do, and then just kind of hopped on a forum, been able to figure it out pretty quick and find a solution. Whereas like that's not always the case for most cars. So I think what you might be thinking of is Land Rovers. I am thinking of Land Rover. That's right. Yeah. So there we go. So this is the call out. This is because of course the Toyota, I drive a Toyota as well. But Toyota Land Cruiser and the Land Rover. Now I'm trying to think the guy we had on. I'm trying to think, was he talking Land Rover? I'll have to check that out, but I can't remember. Yeah. But so go ahead. This is Land Cruiser. And I will say this is not coming from a Land Rover hater. I actually really like older Defenders. It's, in my opinion, it's one of the only vehicles out there that can brake as much as it does, and people will love it the same. They're really awesome cars. But yeah, my first like restoration vehicle was my FJ60, and since then I've had a few other ones. 80 series Land Cruiser. I've got a 40 series sitting out in the driveway right now that's kind of waiting for some love. That one's a 1965.
Oh, wow. So there's another. So you have an older one one out there.
Yeah. It's not running and driving, but it's got a motor and driveline waiting for it one of these days now. So that will be the kind of upcoming project. Making my FJ60 fully drivable, because I did the motor swap on it. I pulled it out of an 80 series Land Cruiser. It was a diesel 80 series. So I pulled it out. I got it from a guy that brought it from England. And it's been a couple of years of kind of like working through all the small things on it to make sure it's like fully functioning as a daily driver. I've been driving it daily for a little over a year now, but it's always a work in progress, and it's a labor of love, that's for sure.
And that's the 1965 Land Cruiser?
That one's the 86, and then the 65 will not be able to be a daily driver. It might be, but it's a pretty archaic one.
What's that one called? What's the name of that one?
So that one's an FJ40. The 65 is
FJ40. Yeah, FJ40. So that's more looks like that's right, because you have all these similarities, right? That looks kind of like a Jeep, right?
Yeah,
a CJ.
Yeah. And the story behind those is the FJ40 and the Willys Jeep were kind of these like two like World War II kind of competitors, basically. They were designed to do pretty close to the same thing. Oh, right. And so that's why they look pretty similar. And as time went on, they kind of evolved differently. Well,
that's interesting, right? Because the 65, I mean, this is all after World War II, but that was Toyota, right? Had their own vehicles back then.
Yep.
Right.
And so there are some models as you go closer to World War II. There really are defined. I actually, if I remember correctly, I don't think they're considered FJ40s. They're called, it might be like an FJ20 or something. I'd have to look it up, but they look very similar. And it's modeled kind of in the same time and use case as the Jeep, basically. Oh yeah, I'm looking at them. Yeah, FJ20. I'm seeing some of them here now, I think. But it's really interesting because I love the cars. There's something about that style of,
well, you're talking 40s, but even the 60s. I know my dad had one of the first cars we had was a Jeep Wagoneer back in the 70s, right? And it looks a little bit like the Toyota Landcruiser, similar, right? They're one of the first SUVs, right? The real, like what we think of SUVs. These were some of the first ones.
Yeah, and man, a Wagoneer is definitely on my list to build. It's either,
it is. So you're thinking, Wagoneer too down the line.
Yeah, there's a company called KC Highlights. They make like pods and other lights. It's kind of like the classic lights that you see that have the smiley face on them. That's their that's
KC,
that company.
sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the owner or who it is, but he has an old Wagoneer that is absolutely mint. And I remember the first time I saw it, I was like, man, I got to build one of these. So it's either like a Wagoneer or like an old Suburban or a Travelall, like an International. They're all kind of like the bigger size wagons that I'm pretty fond of.
What is I'm just curious on your Toyota Landcruiser, the 86. What does it get for gas mileage?
Actually, I get about 21. And
it's 21. There you go.
Yeah, it's because it's a diesel. The gasser that I had in it before, I was getting 12 to 14, and it was reliable, but it was slow. I have fond memories of doing like 35 miles an hour going up mountain passes.
Oh, the pass.
And I'm just like holding up a line of cars.
Right.
Like all the way down the pass.
God, I remember those days.
Yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah.
But that was the reason for doing the swap, was to get a little more drivability out of it. So it's loud, but I'm getting about 20, 21 right now, which is pretty.
And you got more power with the diesel.
Yeah, much more. It's a much more rowdy car to drive now, that's for sure.
That's awesome. Wow, this is great. Well, I think we'll have to follow up with you and talk more about some of your builds there as we go. This has been awesome. But I think Sloan will send everybody out, like we said, intrepidcampgear.com if they want to check out anything we talked about today, rooftop tents, the cargo boxes, anything you have going. And I just want to thank you for all your time and look forward to keeping in touch until that next one.
Likewise. Thanks, Dave.
All right, we mentioned that you can find more of the work Sloan is doing over there at intrepidcampgear.com. That's INTREPID, intrepidcampgear.com. Check them out if you're interested in seeing some of the best rooftop tents and cargo boxes out there. Do that right now. If you want to connect with me, you can do that at Wetfly Swing Pro. We're going strong over there. Check in, send me an email, dave@wetflyswing.com. If you're not already a member, I'll get you connected. Just want to give you a shout out. Our next trip is launching next week, and we are launching the Pike School. Haven't done this yet, so this is a big one next week. If you're interested in hearing about this trip up north, check in on that and follow this show, and you'll get notified when the next episode goes in your inbox. And I just want to thank you for stopping in today. Hope you're having a great morning, great afternoon, or evening, wherever in the world you are, and look forward to seeing you and talking to you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com.